Okay. Hi, everyone. Welcome. My name is Tony Phelan, Associate Director of Alumni and Parent Engagement at MAC. I use she, her pronouns, and then I've got my colleague Liz Carlin here with me helping to run the show today. Students, just so you know kind of how things will run, we appreciate you keeping video on, but we understand if you need to turn it off at any point. We totally get that. I will ask the panelists, our awesome alums here, to each do a quick intro at the beginning, and then I'll kick it off with the first question, but please feel free at any point, type your questions in the chat. You can use the raise your hand feature and I'll call on you, whatever kind of works for you in that space, whatever you're more comfortable with. And you can even direct message me your question too, if you don't want everyone to see it in the chat. So that is fine too. And then we'll be recording this. So if anyone's uncomfortable with that piece being on camera, you can turn your video off, but just know that we'll be recording this and we'll send it out later. And it'll be on our website too. All right. So I'm just going to go in the order that you're appearing on my screen. Eva, would you be willing to kick us off with intros?
Sure. Hi, everyone. My name is Eva Reed. I use she, her pronouns. I am MAC class of 1996. Had to think about that for a second. I live in the DC area. Washington, DC, that is. I was a geography major and I am now working in local government as a data manager. And I also own my own business and I do consulting with women in technology particularly, but any women who are in fields where we're underrepresented. I also am about to get started a nonprofit called the Women's Tech Collective, and that's my latest project, which I'm sure I'll talk about a little bit later. So anyway, nice to be here, and thanks everyone for joining.
Thank you. Stephanie?
Hi, everyone. Thanks, Tony. My name is Stephanie Malon Rufi. I use she, her pronouns, and I am a class of 99. And I was a sociology, psychology double major. I live in the Twin Cities still. I'm in St. Paul, and I have my own business. I've had it for about 4 years now, and I work with social entrepreneurs. I work with the leaders of small growing enterprises that are using business as a vehicle for social change. And my work with them, I work as a strategic business consultant and leadership coach primarily.
All right, thank you. Ned?
Sure. Hey, everybody. Thanks for this opportunity. My name is Ned Zimmerman Bentz. He, him, his. I'm really bad on pronouns still. My kids are trying to teach me, and I don't mean to be ignorant, but it gets to be this place. And I'm class of 91, so I think I'm the oldest chicken here. And I was just kind of counting up. I'm on my 8th career right now, classic liberal arts lifestyle, and I really have refused to move away from McAllister. I'm just in St. Paul by the Brugger's Bagel Shop down on Grand Avenue. So I go by McAllister all the time. So I'm so glad to be here. And my current position is co-founder and CEO of GoGF, which we are an adult literacy platform that converts printed materials and then makes them instantly accessible on the web or on mobile devices for those with limited literacy, which there are about 36 million in the United States of working age, and then also those with limited English proficiency as well. So excited to be here and talk.
Thank you. And Nicole?
Great. Hello. It's good to see everyone. My name is Nicole Dursey. I use she, her pronouns. I'm class of 2000, was an urban studies major. I'm in the Bay Area. This is our office in San Francisco. I have my McAllister water bottle. I went back for the first time this summer since graduation, which is wild. I own my own company, 50+1 Strategies. I have a partner, Adisu Demessi, and we actually today are celebrating our 10-year anniversary of the company. So it's kind of an amazing day to be doing this. We do political work. We do a mix of local, state, and national electoral work, so candidate work, ballot measure work, as well as issue advocacy work, everything from voting rights to racial justice to reproductive rights. And I have worked on campaigns for most of the last 20 years and have had the firm for 10 years. So we have 21 staff as of a couple of weeks from now. It's great to be with you guys.
Thank you. All right, so I'm going to kick off the first question. Students, feel free to raise your hand or put questions in the chat at any point. So I would love to know how you all came to be an entrepreneur. Was it something that you knew you always wanted to do? You always kind of had that, entrepreneurial spirit, or did you come to this after working in different roles for a while? Just however you want to speak on that.
I guess I'll start. So my mother will tell you that whenever Eva says she's not going to do something or she's not interested in it, that's exactly when you know that she's going to end up doing that thing. So when I got my degree and everyone's like, what are you going to do with geography? Are you going to teach? And I said, no, I have no interest in teaching. Well, fast forward, I ended up doing a lot of training in my day job and kind of ended up sort of spinning that into my work as a consultant. The other thing I'd also said that I would never do was, have my own business. And here we are. So I really, everything in my life feels a little bit like it just sort of happened or it fell in my lap. And I know that that's not actually true. There's a lot of work that ended up happening, but it wasn't necessarily work that ended up happening in pursuit of a specific thing. I didn't wake up one day and say, oh, I want to do this, consulting for women in tech. What really happened was I was at my job one day and I was sitting in my cube thinking to myself, wow, I don't see any other women on my floor right now. And, that just, it sort of hit me that day. I mean, obviously I'd known it. We're still, even after all this time, we're still minority in the field. And I kept thinking every day that week, I was thinking, wow, there's no one here. And I know that there are people, but where are they? And why don't I see them? And why aren't we talking to each other? And that's really what caused me to start my business. I wanted to make a space for women in technology. I happened to be working in a technology agency at the time. I wanted to make that space. And it seemed like at the time, the only way to do it was if I was just going to start something, because other people had said, oh yeah, we should. And then it just wasn't happening. So I started doing it, started creating, using my training skills and some of my other communication skills, started to put together events, nothing, big or fancy or anything, but that sort of morphed into running personal and professional development trainings and all of this kind of stuff. So it wasn't planned. Wish I could say that it was, just sort of fell into it, I guess.
Great. I can go next. I imagine we'll get a lot of that. It's not like, I think it's pretty rare for people to have like charted out, like in 10 years, I'm going to own this company and this is all the steps I'm going to do to get there. Like most of the time, you do work that you're passionate about and opportunities arise, or, sort of what Eva was saying, like you realize where there's a need and you're able to meet that need. So for me, I was doing political work, started doing my first campaign in 2004 and was doing organizing work before then. never thought I would be a political consultant or own a firm. I just thought, I want to do good work. And then what I found was, was having some success. We won the first ever paid sick days campaign in the country and got good people elected, and really just felt like I can do this, and the industry is, primarily older white men. And my partner was a Black man, and I just felt like, you know what, we can do this too. And so we didn't have, investors or any like long-term plan. We just said, you know what, let's just get a little, rent a table, a little incubator space, and pay ourselves very little, and, get a couple of staff to start, and work on the campaigns that we had that were able to get, hired to do. And it all just sort of came from there. It was not some, grand plan. Really, we just took a risk and said, you know what, like, let's put our name out there, and, let's get a bank account and legal forms and a logo, and just keep doing what we're doing. And it's just evolved since then over the last 10 years.
I can jump in. Similar, yes, I did not start out thinking I was going to be an entrepreneur and be in that space. And I was a psychology, sociology undergrad, and thought I would go more the psychology kind of clinical work route, and started out that way initially, and realized it was not kind of personally a good fit. Just with, I felt like I could burn out pretty easily in doing some of the work that I was had started in. And what I ended up doing was working within a social enterprise. I worked for another startup company. So I started working kind of in entrepreneurship in a couple different capacities. And that's where and I really loved it. And I loved the energy of that space. And I love working with founders and entrepreneurs themselves. And so it was kind of through those different experiences that I just got my experience and were interested. And then similarly decided that I myself, yes, I could also be an entrepreneur and really work in this space of social enterprise and social working with social entrepreneurs. So it definitely was kind of through experience and just kind of letting myself go there that I ended up kind of where I am now.
So I love hearing these stories because they match pretty much what me. I mean, clearly being on my 8th career means that I did not have a specific path. But there are a lot of I think threads throughout that. And I started off leaving Mac and not really knowing what to do, and spent a year kind of working with autistic kids and trying out different jobs and exploring that, and moved into teaching, and then moved into, and this was before the web, and then moved into technology and education, and moved on to become an entrepreneur with one kind of company, and then went back to teaching, and just all over the place. But throughout all of that, it was kind of like every step of the way, every kind of job had some element of entrepreneurship in it. As a teacher, you really had to kind of figure out problem, and it's all about problem solving. And what are the problems you really enjoy solving? What gets you up in the morning is really kind of what it is. So it's not necessarily I'm an entrepreneur, but more, and this sounds really kind of, I don't know, egotistic, but I'm a problem solver. But I really like finding things and trying to find solutions that people haven't thought, and then seeing them that they work. That's kind of huge. That's huge for me, and especially if it can really impact positively some other people's lives, that's even better. So I would say that's one thing. It's like, don't think like leaving school, you have to be an entrepreneur, you have to have one job. It's like, goodness, no, it's not. I own a house, I have 3 kids, they're going to college, it'll all work out. But find, the problems you want to solve, even if they're far outside of what you're studying right now. I was a history major, and now I'm running a technology company with linguistics. That's the benefit of liberal arts education. So find your problem and then go through that.
Awesome. Thank you all. I received a question from a student, so we'll go to that one next for sure. This student would love to hear what a typical day looks like for you, if there is such a thing.
Okay, I can go. I was just thinking about how I had kind of a fun day. So in addition to the work, I also do creative writing on the side. I went and got a master's in literature and creative writing from the Breadloaf School of English through Middlebury College, like over the course of 10 years. So I woke up this morning, I did a little writing for a class that I'm in. And then I talked to an amazing organization in Milwaukee that's doing voting rights work that we're going to be doing some support work for at 8 this morning. And then I came to the office in San Francisco, and then I'm doing some celebration with our staff around the 10-year anniversary today, and supporting them and getting lunch with some folks in the team, and it's really investing in the team, which I think is a huge part of being a strong entrepreneur, whatever that looks like. Even if you're just a sole proprietor and you're working, with your clients, like developing trust and building community is such an important part of the work. And working like with our team is probably my favorite part of the work that we do. And then I have a call on a big statewide ballot measure I'm doing around electric vehicle infrastructure. I'm talking to Congresswoman Barbara Lee at noon. We're working on her campaign and helping her figure out an organizing strategy. And then I'm doing a training for folks all over the country who are doing ballot measures around how to do effective messaging. And then, later this afternoon, I'll do a one-on-one meeting with a staff member who's, just struggling with a particular client issue. So it's really diverse. I love it. I think it's like, when you're able to create your own thing, you're able to just challenge a lot of different pieces of work and allow yourself to indulge in what excites you, as opposed to just like what you're being asked to do. It doesn't mean you're not accountable. Like all of us, I'm sure, accountable to your clients, and not every day is the most exciting in the world, but it does create variety in a way that I think is you don't have if you're just working for a particular company or a particular organization. That I think is really special.
I think, because we're a small group and we're all working remotely. I was also thinking, just kind of as Nicole was talking also, is like, in talking about all the wonderful staff she has, that's one thing to think about too, is like, do you like working with a team? Do you like working with the team remotely, or do you like working with a team together? And so for me, I'm the most non-introvert amongst our group of 4. So I get to do all the client interfacing. So I was, or customer work and stuff like that. So yesterday I was out, I actually got to do an on-site visit with a potential client. And then I had to work on, test out a new technology with one of our partners. And then I had to realize that, oh my God, we're a month late on a federal report because we have a grant through USDA. It's like, so I got to run through that. It's like, oh, great, finances and paperwork, love it. And then, I made sure to carve out an hour just to kind of work on design work, which is kind of the fun part. And it's just like, that's the thing I'm really surprised about. It's like, a month ago, I was, oh yeah, I'm going to work on that. It's just like, still haven't gotten to it because other things keep bubbling up. So maybe the other entrepreneurs can help me kind of figure out how to say no to things that are screaming at me. But anyway, but it is really, really diverse. And, later this afternoon, I'm going to be meeting with IRB that's helping us with an NIH grant that we have to get started up. So again, lots of great different types of variety. And again, that ties directly back into my, way past as an elementary school teacher, where I got to teach everything. I get to do everything except the technical work, thank God, because then we wouldn't have a company. But, that's it. Find your circle of competence, find the things that you kind of like to do, and then things that you're willing to do. And that also kind of helps in kind of figuring out what kind of, I'm way all over the place now. I'm sorry. I'm just thinking of like, I don't want to talk about my day. I want to talk about like what, would be helpful for you guys coming up. But I think that's it. Like, define your circle of competence, define like what you're willing to do. And that's going to help you find people to work with.
And I think I would add to that, be prepared to sometimes have to do the work in the cracks. So I'm probably a little bit different than most of the folks here. As I mentioned, I have a full-time day job and I'm doing this other thing. So I find myself, like right now, I'm at lunch, take an hour off, annual leave. And so I'll get up early in the morning and work on some maybe administrative stuff. I actually hired a VA last year because I just couldn't get all of the things done. So virtual assistant. And so I'll take care of administrative things in the morning before I leave for the day job, send my VA some emails and say, hey, can you take care of this? Can you take care of this? Come to work, do my day job that is also kind of all over the place. And then like this evening, I have a collaborative presentation or discussion rather with another entrepreneur, and we'll be talking about women in technical and business space and how we have we're tying it into the movie Encanto and the song Surface Pressure. And so we're talking about how we all have a lot of things on our plate, and how do we manage all of that, and how do we to Ned's point, how do we say no when we need to? And a lot of us entrepreneurs are really not good at saying no. So I'm learning how to have to say no because I just don't have enough hours in the day. There is a piece of me that sometimes has to say no because if I'm not getting paid for something, it's not something that I can fit in, and you have to make really hard decisions like that. So I'm really excited to do this event tonight. And then later in the week, I will be doing another sort of similar event. Again, just to try to create space for women. And in particular, this week, we're talking about women and people of color, kind of talking about some of the different and similar experiences. And you just kind of have to be prepared to, at some point, and I suspect most of us can relate to this, just be prepared to be doing some of the things at times that you're not expecting to do them. And, kind of be kind to yourself about making some of those decisions, and remembering that even though you're there to serve others, that you really need to take care of yourself first, because if you don't, then you can't help others. So.
And I'll just add, for me, a lot of my work is one-on-one with clients. So a lot of my days are filled with meetings with clients. I try to spend like an hour in the morning that I am kind of getting caught up with administrative work and emails and that kind of thing. And then I spend a lot of my day meeting with clients, although I'll say that usually ends. I have school-age children. So that's where kind of having the business and how that kind of works with your life. So for me, like my workday ends in the middle of the afternoon, only to go back later in the evening to maybe do writing or some of that kind of computer work. So my day kind of gets split a little bit because of other priorities in my life. So not uncommon for entrepreneurs who might have other family commitments or other things outside of their business. The other thing I would say is that I also spend time, some of my time has to be spent networking and doing business development, because when you have your own business, you also have to be looking at, down the line, do you have clients, right? In the next quarter or what have you. So, so that's a piece that's easy to not do, but that also I have to be really conscious of, like when I'm looking at, I would say like my week, right? Like that, am I devoting some time to also doing that business development work as well?
Thank you all. Students, if any of you have any other questions, feel free to jump in, or you can type them in the chat. Otherwise, I can jump to my next question. Okay, so some of you started talking about this a little bit. How does a liberal arts education set you up to be a successful entrepreneur?
I'll take that. Sorry.
No, go ahead.
I would say in 2 words is like, well, whatever, confidence. Confidence that it's okay to fail and confidence that you probably did use that skill that you all of a sudden need. Like I've been writing like annotated bibliographies for grants, right? It's just like, when was the last time I did that? Was actually at McAllister. So, but at the same time, it's also, being able to think, systematically and things like that. So it's really, but I would say overall, it's just the confidence, like, yeah, I've done a skill like this sometime. That's what I'd say.
Yeah, it's funny because I was just writing that down as something that I wanted to make sure to mention. I actually just did a talk about this. There's so much that you learn as a liberal arts student that is easily translatable into being an entrepreneur, being in technology, being in STEM and like in the larger sense. One of the things that I really hit on when I talk about it is communication is critical. And I don't just mean verbal communication, but writing skills. I mean, Stephanie just talked a little bit about that. One of the other things that I said that I would never do was write for a living. And now I have 2 columns that I write for, one for a GIS magazine, Geographic Information Systems, and another one for another tech magazine. They're both online. And when I was teaching students in a community college, none of them understood why I was so sort of hip on writing. I always had a writing component to my class, and they were all asking me, well, you're teaching a tech class. Why do I need to know how to write? Because you're going to have to do it. Exactly. Exactly. It's like they totally lost their minds. It's such a good skill to be. I was on a team of many introverted people who did not like getting up in front of people to talk, and who didn't like to write or didn't feel like they could write. And for me, it was such a blessing because, hey, Eva, can you help us with this? We need to write XYZ. Can you kind of get this in shape for the presentation, whatever it was? And it's just such a good skill to have. And I'm talking communication, verbal, written, what have you. I can't even say how much that has benefited me in my career overall. Because let's face it, you're going to have to write reports. It's just the way it is. Regardless, I mean, I think several people here have talked about it. There are grants that need to be written. There are reports that need to be done at the end of the year. You have to pull together all these different things. And so for me, being a liberal arts student was probably the best thing I could do to be in technology. So.
Awesome. I totally agree with everything and Ned and Eva said. I also would add just the curiosity, that we bring, and that, we're, as liberal arts students, we're learning so many different things and trying to build connections and understand like how, societal forces are affecting all pieces of the world, right? Be it systemic racism, be it, economic injustice, and all of these things. And like the fact that like I had that foundation, 20 years ago at McAllister has really made me more effective as like a strategist. And, not all entrepreneurs are strategists, but most of them are in different ways, right? And so figuring out like how that kind of curiosity and bigger picture understanding is going to help you approach really new, clients. Like I can work on issues I know nothing about, but I have the foundation of how to ask the right questions and how to dig in and make connections that are going to help me be successful. And I don't think I would have had that if I had done an education that was just very narrowly focused. So
Yeah, I don't have too much more to add. I think this is all like right on. I think it also just, it's that critical thinking and problem solving is what I always think about too. Not only your problem solving like with your business and for the world, but you've got to problem solve how you're going to get some of the work done. Especially initially, you're going to have to wear a lot of the hats and be comfortable with that. And some things you're just going to have to figure out, right? Until you can find someone or partner with someone to help you. But I think that liberal arts education gives you a great background to like feel comfortable for those sort of challenges too.
Awesome. Thank you all again. So we have a student question in the chat. This student is curious to hear how or what paths you all took in terms of finding a job that is fulfilling and inclusive of the values you hold, while also being realistic with the financial side of things.
I would start with that because, I didn't make any real money until probably 5 years ago. And I will say it's like, I think it's a mistake for people in their 20s to be motivated solely by money personally, because, when you're going to be able to, obviously people have unique, situations, and some people have more privilege than others. And some people are coming, out of college with a lot more debt than others. But regardless, like, you should be going after what you're passionate about, because you're going to do great work and it's going to lead to other opportunities. And so people don't think of campaigns as like a way to make money, but if you do work that you believe in and you do good work and you rise up the ladder, eventually you will come to a place where you can be very financially successful. And so just don't assume that low paying job at an entry level is not going to ultimately lead to greater financial success, and like go after what you're most passionate about, because it will evolve in the right way and you're going to be able to, meet a lot of your needs. And don't expect that like it's going to happen, when you're 24 years old. And, personally, I think people I know that were motivated by, just the highest paying job they could get, are often unhappy and sometimes unsuccessful because they're not happy.
Yeah, it's almost, I don't want to say set the money question aside. I mean, certainly you do need to live and you want to be comfortable, but it can't be the driver, because as they say, like, money doesn't make you happy. It certainly solves sort of, the basics. But you really need to look for what it is that you're passionate about. I went into government, and partly because I was passionate about helping people. Partly, I sort of had this idea, oh, it's super stable, so let me do that. But also I'm serving a community, and it feels good to be able to go to work and do some good, right? I at one point had gone into consulting because I was in theory going to make more money, and I couldn't stand it. I mean, I was doing sort of like working for the federal government as a consultant, and I could not stand it. And what I realized is that I needed to be I needed to be doing something that I loved, and I needed to be doing something that was serving people. So again, I'm still in government. I actually make a really good living in government, and it's, through some sweat and tears, but I do make a good living at that. I make pretty decent money doing my own gig, but it didn't come right away. And I had to put in the years, and I told you when I graduated, so you know how long I've been out. It took time. It really did. And, some people fall into something and, they've worked hard for it, and they happen upon a really well-paying career. But again, that doesn't necessarily mean you're happy. So I think the money piece is important, but it is somewhat secondary.
Yeah, and I love this question, Jade, too, because that for me, that always was a kind of the conflict, not necessarily, but just like, what do I want to do that is in alignment with my values, just in general, right? And that I feel like that was always kind of a thread for me of taking opportunities that did seem to be in alignment, and I've tried different things, but I would just sort of echo what's been said, but also say that I think it's great that you're thinking about that now, and that I would just encourage you to just knowing yourself and what those values are, and like being really clear on that will just help you to assess opportunities. But I would just say that you can definitely make it go, right? Like you can definitely have the financial abundance that can happen, but also remaining true to those values. So I just would encourage you to keep that conversation alive and know that for yourself.
Yeah, I would, I agree with everything that's been said here. I think one thing that hasn't brought up, and this might be a kind of right turn, left tangent, but I was lucky enough that I became interested in capital markets and finance and things like that, just as a side geeky thing. And I really, especially while I agree, you don't want to take like a job at Anderson Consulting if that's going to be like, sticking an ice pick in your eye to kind of work in that type of environment. But I also would urge everybody who listens to this to learn about, if you haven't already, about investing and things like that, because that is the one thing you guys have that I'll never have, which is time. And that is like the greatest thing that can compound. So even if you are able to put $500 away after you graduate, which might seem like an enormous amount of money right now, but over weeks, it's not that much. And if you can put that into something that's simple, you've got 30 years to let that go. And that's going to kind of provide you with that just kind of flywheel of support that you might have later on. And it's just kind of like, and just learning to live within your means. And it's not saying you can't take a job with a bank. You can't take a job with an Anderson Consulting, but learning to live within your means and then being able to set aside a little bit so that you can pursue, if you find an idea, that you can pursue that, because pursuing ideas takes a long time. We're on our 5th year. My wife is like, okay, when is the real revenue going to be coming in? And we're very lucky to be in that situation. But we're in that situation partly because I was super lucky when at the age of 22, I learned about this company called Microsoft. And I graduated in 91. So that was really awesome. That was very, very lucky. And it's like, there are those opportunities out there. So I really do implore everybody, especially those of you under the age of 25, to really learn about investing.
Thank you all. Great advice. Students, I'm going to open it up for your questions again before I ask another one. I want to make sure you're prioritizing your questions. Are there any specific sources that you recommend to start investing?
Oh, Jade, there are some really good ones. Especially now that you're still a student at Macalester, Morningstar and Value Line are great opportunities. There's a great book, Pat Dorsey, called The 5 Rules for Successful Investing or something like that. I'll just throw my email in the chat here. And I would love to follow up with anybody who has those questions. But yeah, so those are some. I would start with Morningstar. Investopedia has some really good resources. You can even start your own kind of fake portfolio, so you can figure out the pain of losing money before actually losing money. But yeah, I would. And I'm sorry, this takes a total left-right turn on this, but I'm so glad you asked that question.
No, I think it's an important piece of the whole pie, really. And I was going to say, just to tag on to that, I posted this earlier in the chat related to something totally else, but it still applies. Ask questions. That is like my number one recommendation to everybody. Ask questions, even if you feel like, oh, it's a stupid question. There is no such thing as a stupid question if you don't know the answer. You might not feel comfortable asking person X, so go to person Y, but don't not ask questions because you feel like you're like, oh, I should probably know that. if you don't know it, you don't know it. And, you know, again, to Ned's point, if you don't start asking questions now, you'll be almost 50 and thinking, oh, why did I not, you know, do XYZ? So, you know, just feel empowered and find those people that you can ask questions of, because they exist in every sphere. And, you know, I was going to say the same thing. I'll post my LinkedIn. You're welcome to connect with me. I'm happy to answer questions. You know, I think that every entrepreneur, and I'm just going to make the assumption that I can speak for everyone on this, we've been through stuff. And if we can help you not have to go through that, or at least be informed before you do go through it, we would be happy to provide that opportunity for you to be able to, you know, make the learning curve a little bit less steep. So.
So that's a good segue to the next question that I was going to ask. What keeps you motivated and inspired to keep going when you have, you know, a rough day, week, year? What keeps you all going?
I turn on the news and see all the places where women are not getting their due.
Yeah, right on. Right on. Honestly, it's younger organizers really keep me motivated, you know, and so being able to work with folks like you all, you know, that are coming out of politics and college fresh with motivation and ideas and passion and new perspectives, like, is very motivating to me, because I think that, like, you know, you can get in a rut of kind of, this is the way things are already always done, and to have you know, younger folks that are coming out and challenging that, I think is awesome and really exciting. And so I'm motivated by watching people grow, by watching people, you know, step into their power and be able to lead and to be a part of that. So you all are motivating me today.
Yeah, and I'd say for me, because I work with, my clients are all social entrepreneurs who are just doing like awesome work. And so for me, that's just inspiring working with them and getting to see what they're creating and succeeding at doing. And I would say the other thing for me and being an entrepreneur is I connect with a lot of entrepreneurs, and I kind of have a couple different groups of especially women entrepreneurs that I connect with to support one another, which is really important when you're looking into entrepreneurship, because it can be very lonely and isolating. And so and for me, that's also very inspiring to be connect with other entrepreneurs, to have that support for one another and just kind of rooting for each other is also just inspiring and motivating, especially on days when you're maybe not feeling always the most ready to take it on, because that happens and that can be challenging, especially if you're working independently, to like always kind of get motivated and here we go, you know, every day. So that's for me, having that network is really helpful too.
Yeah, I would totally really emphasize the idea of network. And, you know, I said earlier, I think, or I said in the chat, if you are going to start something, you know, and I think Nicole definitely did this too, is like have at least one other person to start with, just because to have somebody to commiserate who's not your life partner, to have somebody to commiserate with and speak your fears that you can totally trust is great. And, you know, I'm very lucky that I have 3 folks that we've gone through this together. And they're not my friends, but they're kind of trusted in a certain way. And that also keeps me motivated, because like, I love working with these people. And it's like, if you can find, and that's to your point about, you know, like the job search, don't necessarily look at like the money. Well, the money's very good, and health benefits and stuff like that, but also like, who are you going to be working with? And because that's going to get you to come to school, or sorry, go to work every day. Is like, if you like working with the people you're working with, you're really going to enjoy that job. And then the other thing for me, I'm very lucky in that we get instant feedback now, as from our platform. So we're getting things like, I'm a 40-year-old that nobody knew about dyslexia when I was going through school, and now I can finally read because of Snap Reader. And that is like, whoa, that's huge, and like that's really motivating to see that we have thousands of people using our apps now to help them get the information they need to know now. So that's really motivating. But on the other side, it's not. But I also wake up at 3:30 in the morning, like, and just like, and that's part of it. You have to know that it's not rosy times all the time. In fact, rarely is it rosy. It's a lot of mess, and it's a lot of. So that's why it's so important that you have a network, or even better, co-founders that you can go through that together with.
Right. I'm going to open it up one more time for student questions before I ask my last one. Okay. Well, before I ask this last question, I see some of you sharing your contact info in the chat. If you all want to offer email, LinkedIn, if you haven't yet, please feel free to drop it in the chat so students can follow up with you afterwards and take your advice to connect with people and ask questions. But the thing that I'd like to wrap up with, keeping an eye on time here, what is your kind of biggest piece of advice you'd have for someone looking at a career as an entrepreneur, wanting to start their own business? Especially, if you could tell yourself something before you started in your career or when you were a student back at Mac, what's your parting words of advice?
I would say it's not as scary as you think it could be, right? That starting a business doesn't have to mean, risking everything. You don't have to come up with, $500,000. Like, you just have to have, an idea and a little bit of assurance that, you can get a bare minimum, that you need to live on, and take the leap. I never thought we would do this. And, here we are 10 years later, and I am never bored, and I'm just so thrilled that, I have the autonomy and to work on the things that I care about, and, to build a company that I believe in, and to have, flexibility in my schedule, and that it is a beautiful thing. And don't be too afraid, get a little experience in the thing that you want to run a business on, to sort of start, I would say. But it's probably not like the day you graduate, although there are some people that do it and do great. But once you kind of get a sense of what you're most passionate about, like, just don't be afraid. It's not as overwhelming as it seems.
Try everything. If it strikes you as interesting, try it. I as we're talking, I think about things that I wish that I had tried when I was at Mac, and I was still sort of in that bubble of like, I can try it, and if it doesn't work out, it's okay. But I really think that holds even after you leave school and you're in the world. If it excites you, try it. Don't let something pass by because you're thinking to yourself, that's really just nah. Give it a shot. If it doesn't work, it doesn't work. And I wish I'd had more of that when I was younger. And it's not to say that I can't still do that. Now I do it. Now I try things. But I wish I had done more of that when I was starting out, as opposed to in the middle somewhere.
I would say also is to try things that you might not succeed at, or that you're really scared of, whether that's work-wise or in school or in trying some new activity, like anything in your life, just to get more comfortable with taking a risk and putting yourself out there. Because a lot of entrepreneurship, you kind of have to put yourself out there and do things that are really going to scare you. And there's a return and there is a reward for that. But the more comfortable you can just be with that, I think that can also really help you if you go into starting something yourself. So just any opportunity you have, if you might be like, oh, I'm not going to do that, an automatic no, because you don't want to put yourself there. I just would challenge you to start thinking about that and start saying yes sometimes. Not too much though, right? That's the other. You could get overloaded saying yes, but I mean, but those, right, it's the balance. But what are the things that might scare you or that's out of your comfort zone? The more experience you get doing that in all parts of your life, the more helpful that will be also when you're in that kind of entrepreneurial role.
And I would say that kind of riffing off the try stuff is also even try things that are like totally not in your interest in a way. Like I wish I had been a salesperson for a while, just because again, I'm an introvert and it's like, and taking the word no is just like huge, but it's like a no is actually the start of yes. And hey, so, you know, even try, especially now when you're young, you know, always try something that's totally outside of your skill set to just see if maybe that works. And then the other thing I would say is like, don't regret not doing something, just do it now. I mean, it's, and again, I'm extremely privileged to be able to say that. You know, things have really worked out for us really well, but you know, there is, if you really feel like, God, I wish I had done that, then figure out a way to do it. Because then you don't carry that same, you won't have that regret anymore.
One last thing to add is just travel. See as much of the world as you can, because you'll never regret it. And you might not want to sleep on hard train benches, you know, for 37 hours when you're in your 40s, but you can do it in your 20s and you can do it on the cheap. So see the world.
And if you have kids, travel with your kids, because that is how you really meet the cultures.
This is all such great advice. I need to take some of your advice too. All right. Well, I just want to be mindful of everyone's time. Students, there is a survey in the chat if you'd be willing to fill that out for some feedback. But I just want to thank all of our amazing alumni for speaking with us today, sharing their knowledge, sharing their advice and their wisdom. Students, thanks for joining us and for your great questions. And yeah, we'll send a follow-up email to you students probably at some point next week with the recording and everything. So keep an eye out for that. But yeah, thank you. Have a great rest of your day.